Hey guys, how you doing? Ron's a Nut here. Today I have a case review for you. The folks at Performance PCs recently received in these BitFenix Shinobi XL cases. Now this case is a windowed version of the case, and it's the big brother to the BitFenix Shinobi that's been out for a while. And when I saw that they came in, I asked them if I could take a look at it. One of the things that we will do is install a kit in it for air, to see how well the system performs with just an air build, and then we'll install a water cooling kit into it as well. So first I'm going to take you around the case, and then we'll take a look inside, and then as we go through I'll focus on some of the things that I see with regards to water cooling, and then we'll actually install the kits and see how they actually perform. The construction of the case is all black steel and black plastic. The plastic is the BitFenix soft touch material. If you've seen the front of the BitFenix Recon controllers, they have the same material, and it feels nice. It's got a nice, classy, kind of an elegant feel, touch to it. And you have an aluminum logo here on the front. You have 5.25 inch external bays in the front, and the dimensions of the case are 22.5 inches tall by 21 inches deep and 9.5 inches wide. So let's take a look now at the top. On the top of the case you have more of the BitFenix soft plastic material. All of this that you see going along the top and the front. You have 5 USB ports here. One of them is a supercharge port that provides 2.5 amps of current to allow you to charge your mobile devices. That's a current charging port only and not a data port. Then you have 4 USB 3.0 ports, your headphone jack, your microphone jack, power switch, and then a recessed reset button. And unless you have pointy fingertips, you're going to need a pencil or some kind of pointy object to be able to reset that with. On the rear of the case you have, starting at the top, you have 4 grommets for passing water cooling tubes or cabling if you need outside of the case. I'm not a big fan of external water cooling, but they gave you the capability to do that. You have a 120 millimeter BitFenix fan that's installed there, and with mounting points for 140 if you choose to do that. You'll notice there's 9 PCI slots, so that tells you that you can get up to an XL ATX case in here. And then the power supply would be mounted on the bottom. And all of this here is all black painted steel. And before we get onto the side, let's take a look at the bottom of the case. On the bottom we have the 4 feet. They are all adjustable. Nice big wide feet in there. They're adjustable for leveling if you need to. We do have a fan filter underneath the power supply, which is nice. It has a good friction fit, so it doesn't seem like it's going to want to slide out or fall out if you move it around. So that's a nice feature. And there are 2 120 millimeter fan filters here, but these are not screws. They're actually plastic. Looks like they're probably plastic clips or studs that hold these fan filters in. Now it's great that there's fan filters there. The fact that you have to get inside the case and pop the clips off to remove them and clean the filter is not ideal. They should have done the same thing as they did here with some kind of retention bracket that you can slide the filters down into. And also, since this case has a nice smooth rounded edge, there would be no kind of ridge that would prevent it from being able to slide it in and out. So that would have been nice to see, but the fact that there's fan filters on here are good. And when we get inside the case, we'll see how easy it is to remove those plastic clips or rivets that are holding those filters in place. Actually, I'll try to pull on them a little bit. No, I'm not going to force it. Alright, so let's take a look then at the inside of the case now. Now here's the windowed side of the case. Now first thing to note is that window is nice and large. I love big windows. When you're building a rig, to put all that great hardware in there and cable it and color code it and put your theme in, nothing better than having a big window to show off a case. For me, really, I don't see a reason in buying a case unless you're going to have a window on the side that you can show off what's in it. So big window is a big plus for me. There are 2 thumb screws, just like the other side, to remove the side panel. The screws come out nice and easy, and it looks like you can just tilt the panel up and off. All right, and what I'm going to do now also is I'm going to remove the top of the case and the front, so that we can really get a look inside the case and talk about some of the cooling. You can't see it with those pieces on there right now. We'll do that. Now, to remove the front panel of the case, they give you an area here, the grip, which actually does offer some air intake along with the small ventilation strips on the front of the case. But all you do is pull it and it pops right off. And then the same thing for the top of the case. You do have to pull quite hard, but you can get the top off of the case in the same way. You pull them through. For cable management, on this side of the case, there is plenty of depth. There's about 1.5 inches of depth between the back of the motherboard tray and the side of the case where the panel would go on. You can see this is a pretty thick bundle that's coming from the I/O tray as it is, and that was just tie wrapped right here, and it was not touching the back panel in any way. You can see there's 7 grommeted cable pass-throughs from the front, and there's at least 1 more here that's also a pass-through. These 2 are not, but there's quite a bit of space. There are, I counted, about 19 tie wrap mount points on the back side of the case here too. So I think dressing your cables and then getting them up out of the way nice and neatly is not going to be an issue with the space they provide you in this case. Now, one of the things I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the top panel and bring the cables out of there, so it's much easier for me to maneuver the case around, and we can talk about cooling and various mounting options. For motherboards, this case will handle mini ITX, standard ATX, micro ATX, eATX, extended ATX, and XL ATX motherboards. They provide mounting hardware for installing your standoffs for depending on the motherboard configuration you want, and they also have key codes etched into the case to tell you where to put them if you don't already know how from your motherboard. The case has quite a big space for being able to have your heatsink coolers and your motherboard mounted and be able to remove them. We'll see how well that's positioned with the motherboard that I choose to put in here. And we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grommeted cable pass-throughs. There's also a space over here that is not grommeted. I think that is below the power supply height, so you can put that there. And as I mentioned when we looked at the back, there are 9 PCI slots there, so that covers you all the way through the XL ATX motherboard options that you would have. And you have room on the bottom for the power supply. There are a couple of mounts that are in the bottom there that you would rest your power supply on. And on the drive bay side, we have a drive cage here that supports 7 devices. So you can mount 7 3.5-inch drives. They provide you with the toolless drive holder, so that all you got to do is flex the drive holder and then mount the drives inside there. They'll fit right into the screw holes. And if you want SSDs, you'll mount those. They have 4 points to secure an SSD in there, and then you would mount them directly back into the cage here. So as I said, there's 7 of those that you can put, and then there are 5 up top here, and these of course are external drive bay for 5.25-inch devices. So you have 4 of them that have panels that you would have to break off. One of them has capability for 3.5-inch pass-through, and they also provide you with a accessory holder for mounting a 3.5-inch device, such as a card reader or something, or maybe a removable drive tray that you might want to put. And it also has the mounting options to install for a SSD up here if you wanted as well. And the faceplate of that is also the soft plastic touch that BitFenix has. Now on the drive bay, this drive bay can be removed. Now, but before doing that, I just wanted to take a quick measurement. This space here is about 13 and a quarter inches. So you can fit currently in the base configuration of this case the longest graphics cards that are out there on the market right now. So this case is quite spacious. Now let me remove this drive cage. All right, to remove the 7 bay drive bay here at the bottom, it requires a removal of 11 screws. There's 4 on the bottom that you get to from the underside of the case, and there's 4 in the top here that you have to get inside the back of the upper drive bay cage area to get those out, and then there are 3 along the back that you have to remove. So you know, it's a little bit more involved than some of the other cases to remove your secondary drive cage, but it can be done, and it's really not that difficult. Now on the cooling front, this case comes stock with a 230 millimeter fan here in the front, another 230 millimeter fan in the top, and 120 mil fan in the back of the case. Now in the front of the case, there is a mesh filter that could be popped out, and let's take it out and take a look. And you'll notice there are a bunch of fan mounting options here. You can fit there's mounting options for up to 3 120 millimeter fans here. So you could remove this and install 3 120 or 2 120 millimeter fans at the bottom. They do have the mounting options for a third there. In the top, you can install a second 230 millimeter fan, and it also has mounting points for 1, 2, 3 120 millimeter fans at the top. And then in the back, as I said originally, that fan can be replaced with a 140. Now the bottom as well has ports for mounting 2 120 millimeter fans, and these are clips that have to be popped out, and then you would be able to mount them in there. But you've got a set of 120 millimeter fans that you can mount to this case. So from an air cooling standpoint, air coming in the front, the only thing that concerns me is that this is the air inlet for the fan on either side. So I got to believe that this 230 mil fan might be a little starved, but it does have space at the bottom as well, so maybe not so much, but we'll see. We're going to install a kit in here. So from a radiator aspect, you could easily get a 240 and push-pull in the lower section here. You can probably get a 360 radiator in there, but you would only be able to have 1 set of fans, at least in the top portion of the radiator. Now you can also mount a 240 rad down here in the bottom instead of mounting anything here in the front. And we'll go ahead and take a look at positioning that, and certainly that one, if you don't have the drive bays, you don't have to worry about interfering anything up. So you could do a push-pull on that as well. And then to see what we can do on the top, certainly it looks like you can get a 360 in the top, but I'm not sure about the fan configuration. I don't think there's enough space inside the lid to be able to put fans up on the top. So you would have to either do 1 set of fans, and if you did 2, you would be then potentially encroaching on the space of your motherboard. So let me take out these fans here, and let's mock fit some radiators in there to see what we can do. All right, well, push-pull on a 240, absolutely no problem. And you can mount it upright like this and bring your fittings out near the front or the top, or you could also do it obviously like this, and that's about the height right there. That's where it would be, that's right aligned up with the holes. So a 240 in the front, no issue. 240 in the bottom, lined up right over the fan mount holes. And if you do it like this and run the fittings out this end, the only thing you have to worry about is the length of your power supply. Let's see how much space you have between there. You have 7 inches of clearance if you're gonna if you have a radiator that you'll take the ports out the side. So you got 7 inches, so you could get a power supply in there, and it looks like this would leave enough room to still use. Yes, you can still mount the factory 230 mil fan would still fit here in the front. So that's a nice compromise. So one of the things that I mentioned was possibly being able to put fans in the front. The one thing that I didn't consider is a couple of things. Was the plastic brackets that hold the logo in would touch into the fan. Any fan up in the third quarter would require you to cut out this bottom piece. So this is the bracket area to hold the filler panels in for the bays. So you'd have to mod it to cut that out. But even if you did that, there is no air. It would be starved of air because the fan would be right up against the back of this. So although this is deep enough to have a fan mounted on the front, you would have nowhere that fan would actually be drawing air. So fans on the outside of this are a no-go. But as I said, fans on the inside for a 240 is fine. A 360 rad, you would have to mod the bay here to be able to get, you either use a thin 360, that would work in one fan, that you could do. So a thin 360 with a set of fans and pull would work in this radiator, because I don't have a thin slimline 360 to show you, but there's 80 mil of space between in this opening here, so that is not a problem with one fan and a 30 mil rad. That's 55, and actually you could probably do a 45 thick rad like this one right here with, but you would only be able to get one fan up inside there, because this right now will not fit. That bumps out. There's no space. This right here is 45. That's 95 mil thick right there. So that won't make it in that 80. But if you wanted to, you could mod that out to give you that space if you wanted to. All right. So now let's talk about. We've talked about the front and the bottom, adding fans and radiators. Now let's look at the top. Now, although we couldn't get a 360, a thick 360 in the front, up in the top, we do have all the space we need and the proper mounting points. There we go. To mount a rad and at least one set of fans. Now, I'll have to take a measurement to see where your motherboard ends here, but here is one of the standoffs for a motherboard. So one set of fans definitely would do. A push-pull might be tight. Now you will lose you'll lose 2 bays in the front. 2 of these 5 1/4 inch bays you'll lose by mounting a 360 in here, but you can mount a 360. And then as far as push-pull by mounting fan on top, let me put a fan on there, but I don't think there is any space to be able to do that. But let's take a look. So what I have done now is mounted that RX 360 in here with a couple of 120 mil fans on top and on the bottom. So this is the space that you have inside, and see if I can zoom you in. So you can see that you have right up to the edge here, and actually there are some standoffs here for motherboards that would encroach, but you could get that safely as long as you didn't have any VRMs or anything, any MOSFET heat sinks that came up and tapped it. So this is a 60 mil rad in here. Obviously 45 or 30s won't be a problem. Anybody with a Corsair H100 or H80 or anything like that, no problem. The H100 right here in the top is not a no-brainer, and in the H80 or one of the single 120 self-contained liquid cooling systems would be fine in this case without a problem. But for more serious water cooling, let's see, you can get this in and you'd be able to put in your fans here. And like I said, you would lose 2 bays. 2 bays for your room. And let's see if we can get the top on the case and see if it's possible to have that kind of cooling. So excuse me. Now looking at the inside, this bracketry right here would not allow that fan to be there. So this top will not fit with that in here. Now if you were into modding, you could easily cut that out of your case. This is just for some strength along the top, but I bet that you could, with a Dremel, you could cut some of that out and you could fit a fan in there. So these fans are 25 mils or an inch, and let's see here, right down the center. You need 4 3/4 inches, and you easily have that. Inside the whole mesh area there's 5.5 inches, and the depth to the mesh is a full right at an inch. So with some modding, you could remove this support structure here underneath and arrange to still leave the mesh along the top, and that you could then have a push-pull configuration with the fans on top. Basically, that could be done, but not stock. You would have to modify it. So you could get a big 360 rad up in the top without with a push-pull, but it does require some modification. Now the other thing too to consider is how far back it will go. The fan mounting points go 15.5 inches, and we have that. So that's a mod project. If you wanted to do it, you could remove this support stuff in here and just leave the mesh. As long as you still had this rigid piece of the bracket to connect the mesh to, you could easily have that a push-pull with a 360 rad in the top and this piece modified here. And then the one other thing to look at are the connections. Let's take a look at the top panel connections coming down into your motherboard in the case. We have black ribbon wire that has the hard disk LED, the power LED, reset, and power switches. And it's nice that they're all black, not the, sometimes some of these cases you get the multicolored, you know, red and white, green, and all that dressed in your case. They did a nice job making that all black. We have your HD audio or standard AC 97 audio, dual connector. And then one of the things they did is they took from that same design, and this is really nice, for USB 3.0 they gave you, there's 4 ports in the top, so they give you 2 USB motherboard header connectors. Now it's very rare that any motherboards that I've seen recently have 2 USB 3.0 headers on them. So what they've done is they've given you the USB 2.0 connector that's attached to it. So, and they've given you enough length, it looks like, that if you could wrap up this cable in the back and the other side, the cable side of the case, and just have this come through the bottom up to your USB 2.0 port. So you won't have this big blue sucker hanging inside your case. So that's really nice. I don't think that I've seen that yet on a case. Basically they took this idea from the audio and they did it to the USB. I think that's brilliant. So and you have 2 of them, so you can use one on your USB 3.0 on most motherboards nowadays, and the other one to utilize the other 2 ports on the top of your case for your USB 2.0. So you just have to remember which 2 you'll relegate to that once you wire it up. And then the supercharging port on the top is powered by a SATA power connector instead of a Molex. So that's a nice touch. BitFenix opted to use allow us to connect it to an available SATA connection hanging in the case, rather than having to maybe install a whole set of Molex connectors just for one power option. All right, we've taken a look now all around the case and talked about all the stock cooling that you have in there, and we also went into and I fitted in some radiators. So now what I'm going to do is, now we're going to see how this case performs both in an air cooled kit setup and also with a liquid cooling setup. So for the air cooled setup, I'm going to use basically it's a ASRock Z77 OC formula motherboard, and the CPU on there is an i7-3770K. When we test it, we'll have an SSD mounted, and we will also have a hard disk drive mounted, and we will also use a GTX 680 EVGA superclock version. So you'll see one or maybe two of those cards in this case. So that'll give you an idea, and we'll see how the cooling performs with air. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the, I'm going to take the air cooler off and install an AlphaCool Nexus 240 DDC XT kit in this, and that has a 240 millimeter radiator, the one actually that you saw me test fitting in this earlier. So we're going to install that in there, so it'll just be a CPU only loop, but that's what we'll water cool it with, and we'll see how easily that goes in. So that'll give you a good feel for, in reality, how this case performs both air cooled and with a basic water cooling kit setup. Alright, so let's I'm just going to install it and run it. You won't be seeing any of the build process. Now, just to show you the space that the Shinobi XL has inside, that 9.5-inch width for this case helps you to install one of these very large tower coolers. That's a Fantex PH TC 14PE cooler in this case, and I can take off the side here. And it has no problems at all holding that cooler inside that case. I give you a close look. Plenty, there's probably at least about, I don't know, maybe half an inch to an inch of space between there and the side panel. So, no problem putting big tower coolers in there. For mounting SSDs and hard drives, on the trays there are 4 screw holes for your SSDs, so you would then just go ahead and secure them, your SSD, to that, and then slide it into the holder. For hard drives, what you would do is line up these 2 holes on your hard drive with the 2 pins on the toolless drive tray here. And then once you have that, you flex the other side of the tray and have those holes also lined up and in. And then, of course, just slide it and snap it right in. In order to install a 5¼ inch device in any of the top 5 bays, such as an optical drive, what you do is you slide the drive in till you line it up with the panel, and you press this button right here, and it engages, and then you have your device locked in. Very simple toolless installation for a 5¼ inch drive. Very nice and easy. The CPU cutout on the BitFenix Shinobi XL does provide ample space for removing brackets for your CPU cooler. This is the support bracket for the Fantex cooler, and it's quite large, but it's got plenty of space to be able to remove without having to remove the motherboard. Alright, so we have installed in here an ASRock Z77 OC formula motherboard, and that mounted without any issues, any problems. That's the Fantex cooler on top of an i7-3770K, and that is the GTX 680, the GeForce from EVGA. So you can see plenty of space, plenty of room. I installed all of the cables that came directly off this HAL 90 NZXT power supply And one of the things to note though is those grommets, especially the grommet down there by the power supply cables, that grommet kept falling out. So they need to do a better job of securing the grommet or finding a different one that'll stay in there better. But all the pass-throughs are in a good spots, and there are some that I didn't even need at the top. So and stretching the cables that come from the power supply all the way up to the top for the EPS power and 12 volt ATX power, not a problem. They made it without any issues. All right, so we have that. And then on the other side, the cable management, I used tie wraps that came with the Shinobi XL, and I used all of those. They are fine. I was able to tie them all up to the various cable tie points that they have in the case. Very nicely placed, no problems. This motherboard only had one USB 3.0 port, so I did use the 2.0 on one of the cables, and I was able to put it through on the motherboard, and then this guy, the cable's long enough, this is hanging out the back so you don't even see it. So I really do like that feature that they provided and splitting that on the cable. So, and the other 3.0 is going through, and I'm using that on the motherboard. But here's all the cables dressed, really just a quick dressing of the cables. I didn't spend that much time on it. And then the power connections, and then this here is the power to the supercharger port on the top of the case. So that I connected in to the extra SATA power connector that I had available. So I didn't have to break out any Molex connection. Anyway, so real nice and easy to cable. Plenty of space back here. So there it is, nice big window. Really like that. You can see your complete motherboard and even the power supply, and there's plenty of space right there as well. Now let's fire it up and run some benchmarks and get some temps from the case as an air-cooled build. So we finished up testing, and this is a CPU at stock. The temps got as high as 52, 54, 49, and 54. That's a 52.25 degree average. We finished testing at the 4.7 overclock, and the highest the temps got were 78, 85, 80, and 79. So that's an 80.5 degree average, the top temps in the BitFenix Shinobi XL with the 4.7 overclock. So now we were able to take a water-cooled kit. We converted from the air-cooled tower CPU cooler to a CPU-only water-cooled loop, and it was pretty straightforward. Mounting the block onto the motherboard without having to remove the CPU out of the case was very straightforward and easy to do. Mounting the radiator to the top of the case was also pretty straightforward, although we were only able to use 2 fans. You can't do a push-pull configuration due to the space limitations between the roof and where the motherboard tray starts. And you cannot put fans on the top of the case without modding the inside of the top of the tray. But still, went in very straightforward, and then mounting a bay reservoir was just like mounting a 5 1/4 inch optical drive. Just slid right in, locked in place, and plenty of space in this case to be able to install that radiator and the reservoir, and also to touch that motherboard without having to take things apart. Actually, I didn't even have to remove the graphics card to do it. Next up to see how well it performs. So we finished up 30 minutes of OCCT at stock, and the highest the temps got were 55, 56, 51, and 57. The ambient temp was 23, which gives us a 31.75 delta T for stock clocks. Now we're going to run it at overclock 4.7 and do the same thing. Okay, so we finished testing at the 4.7 overclock. Under load, the max temps got to be 80, 85, 80, and 80, and so that averaged out to be an 81 degree average load under the overclock. The ambient temp was 25 degrees, so that's a 56 degree delta. At the overclock, running 3770K 4.7 overclock at 1.2 volts. Okay, let's wrap up the review on the BitFenix Shinobi XL full tower gaming case. This case has got plenty of space in it. You saw inside that motherboard area. It takes everything from a mini ITX up to a full XL ATX motherboard. I had no troubles installing my kit in there. Even the full CPU cooler that I used on there still had a few inches yet to spare in that case. I absolutely had no issues at all putting that in. The space behind the motherboard tray so that you can do your cable management is ample. I had no problems routing and nicely, neatly tying down my cables using all of the pieces that actually came with the kit. I really didn't have to use any of my own tie wraps or cable clips, so they give you enough there. The soft touch material on the case is very nice. I really like it. It's got a very classy kind of feel to it and look. I thought it looked great. The large window on the case for me is a must-have. If you're going to spend the time building your own system, whether you air cool or water cool, I think you need to show it off. So I don't think any of the systems that I have are without window right now. Little things, features in the case. We have the supercharger port on the top that provides 2.5 amps of current to charge any of your devices. That is a nice feature, and it also has the SATA power connector, the under end of that, so you don't have to break out your Molex connectors just for that. So that was a nice touch. On cabling, also the USB 3.0. They give you two 3.0 motherboard headers, but most motherboards these days don't have but more than one. So the other one doesn't go to waste because both of them come with the USB 2.0 pigtail that comes off of it, and they give you enough length on that you can actually dress the 3.0 header in the back side of your case and not have it protrude through and hang inside your case while you plug in your USB 2.0 port into your motherboard. And you've seen that in this build here. I took advantage of that. Now, it would have been nice if they would provide a little bit more venting for airflow in the front of the case. I think that 230 millimeter fan is a little starved, but the case did okay with air cooling. The grommets, especially the large grommet you pass your power supply through, those grommets, that grommet fell out constantly when I was building the case. I actually didn't even have it in till just before I went to finish tying it up. The other grommets did a little bit better, and they all kind of seemed to hold their own once you had some cables through. But the large one near the bottom, definitely it should look at a better way to secure it, or come up with a little bit of a stiffer one to so that doesn't happen. The card cage in the front is removable, or you can orient it so that it faces from the front of the case to the back of the case. Now, first I questioned why you would want to do that, because if you did turn it that way, you're going to have a difficult time reaching your power and your data cables. But the fact that you can do it is nice. I just wish they made it a little bit easier. It takes about 11 screws to remove it and move it. So if you're going to adjust it, you know, just a little nit, I guess, on my side, I would imagine that you probably could do it with easier mechanisms and maybe some fewer mounting points. So bottom line, guys, if you want to do a build in this case, it'll handle both an air and a water-cooled build. On air, it does a decent job. I think the venting in the front of the case could be a little bit better and would make for better airflow. But you can add fans to the bottom, and you could replace the 230 in the front and add you know, some more fans up along the front, up to 320s. So it will give you what you need, but again, any fans you put in the front I think are going to be stymied a little bit. But I think where this case really shines is in its water cooling potential. The fact that you can put 360 in the top, 240 in the bottom, 240 or even certain 360s in the front, make this case prime for being able to do that. So if you've got a nice kit, you're building a nice water-cooled system to game in especially, With that big window there, I tell you what, this case is really nice. It's classy looking, and it will handle all of your water cooling needs stock. And then if you did want to get adventurous and do some modding, I like the fact that there are some potential in this case beyond that you could if you wanted to add push-pull in certain configurations. So, so yeah, overall, I really like this case for water cooling, and I hope you did too. And if you did, please check out our friends at Performance PCs who made this case available and possible for me to review. It's a reasonably priced case, and I think that you would really enjoy it. So I hope you liked this review. If you did, please like and favorite, and if you're so inclined, please subscribe. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.